Well, hey there, and welcome to the Brookside Conversations podcast. My name's Lucas, and I'm the director of online community here at Brookside. And I'm really excited that you have joined with us for this podcast. We have honest conversations about life and faith. And today we have a great episode with my friend Rob Hodgkinson, who is the director of Life Groups here at Brookside. And I'm just really excited to bring you that conversation because it was really life-giving, and his heart behind Life Groups at Brookside is just so big. And we even talked about that a little bit and some of the practical things of what life groups look like and why they're so important in the life of the church. But before we get into all that, I just want to let you know, if you head to mybrookside.church, there's a newsletter there called the Brookside Brief. And if you sign up for that, you get all this insider information about Brookside and things coming up, our services, some really interesting kind of encouraging notes going on there, and even stuff about the youth group and the kids ministry and prayer ministry and digital different things. And so much happens, and that all comes on Fridays in the Brookside Brief. So you got to go to mybrookside.church to sign up for that. And while you're there, you can check us out. There's archives of all the sermon series that we've ever had. We've been able to videotape them over the past many years on YouTube. And if you're on our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to it, make sure you subscribe or follow. Just make sure you don't want to miss one of these episodes because they're so fun. So I really, really hope you have a great time listening to this conversation with Rob Hodgkinson on Brookside Life Groups. So without further ado, here is that conversation. Well, hey, Rob, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you, Lucas. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's been really fun to have these conversations about the different ministries at Brookside. And I would love for you to just get right into it and tell us a little bit about what are life groups all about here at Brookside.
Okay, sounds good. Well, life groups really are just small groups of people. Usually the people are from Brookside, and usually they meet on a weekly basis. And usually it's 6 to 12 people. And usually they have, they're scheduled the same day and the same time. And
I'm noticing a bit of a trend here already.
We're not hard and fast.
Yeah.
That's one of the nice things about life groups is that they are flexible and they can be geared to the particular group. We've got, right now we have 7 life groups that are going on a regular basis. And basically, we just get together. We want to do life together, get to know each other, build relationships. The way that the life groups work is it's a rhythm, and there's 2 weeks of study, 1 week of social, and 1 week of service. And on a typical study day, what usually happens, we'll meet together, and usually it's half an hour or so, and just have time for coffee and conversation, just get caught up with one another, what's been happening in each other's lives.
Yeah.
And then we take some time and we do some study. And it's not your typical Bible study. Mm-hmm. We normally follow it's called a life group conversation guide. Mm-hmm. And it's normally prepared by the person that has prepared the message from the previous Sunday. And it's questions that are geared to allow us to talk about that message, go a little bit deeper into that message, and also not only to talk about it from a biblical perspective, which we do, but also how that message applies to me, and how I can apply that, what I've learned, on day-to-day living. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate the conversation guides, the study that we do.
Yeah.
And
what's so cool about that is that the lead pastor, like Greg, he is like preaching like just about every week, and then we have a couple others through the year who preach. But whoever it is generally is putting a lot of prayer and attention to the content and what they're thinking through. And for the lead pastor, Greg, like he's got his thumb on the pulse of the church. And so he's like working through what people are going through and teaching on that. Like that's just trying to make the Bible really relevant in our lives. And I've loved how we have set that up so that it's not just one-offs on Sunday, but the conversation is really meant to carry on in life groups.
Yeah, it's great. And we were able to distribute the questions out to the life group members. And the other thing too is, probably a lot of people aren't aware of it, but those questions are also on our website. And so if you ever wanted to work through or take a look, or you had some questions about a particular message, it's just a great resource. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much that's there. So that's our study. Usually those are 2 weeks out of the month. There's one social week.
All right.
The social can really be anything that the group enjoys doing together. It may be a day of games. It might be a barbecue or a meal. It might be activities. Usually the groups are adults, but the social may be a time where the kids of the group members can be invited in, and it becomes a social activity in that way.
Yeah.
The other neat thing about the social time is that it allows the group members to invite other people in to get a look at what this life group business is all about.
Like bring a friend night.
Bring a friend night, exactly. Yeah. And it works really, really nicely, that social time, and a great time to get to know the people better. I know our last social time, and there was a very heated crokinole board game going on in the corner.
Heated crokinole. Oh man.
So it was neat. At the end, one of the guys came out and he said, "We got silver."
Nice.
So
it's funny because I had my birthday the other day, so I'm 31. And so I haven't, I guess as an adult, been a part of a lot of Bible study experiences, or like more traditional. But when I was a kid, my parents would have Bible study, but they only did Bible study. And I don't think it would ever have been tied to the content or the message from the Sunday. It was just you'd have maybe a book or a guide, or often it was just read scripture and then talk about it. And this social piece that we've been doing this for several years now, encouraging groups to do this, and to just kind of be like, you're in this together, this life of yours, this rhythm, and to kind of be like, part of it is the studying part, but just living life together is really, really important too, eh?
Oh, it is. If you can take those biblical concepts and enjoy the aspects of them, the aspects of the friendships that you've developed, it really is. It's huge. So I enjoy the rhythm. I think it's very well set up. The fourth one of the fourth week is normally set up as service, and service is a chance to get out into the community and do some things that may benefit the community. Lucas, you and I were in a life group way back, 3-4 years ago?
That's right, yeah.
And so we, with our life group, we went into a residence. It was a group home, and we did an evening once a month with some of the men in the group. Now, at the same time that we were doing that, back those number of years ago, there was another life group that was doing the same thing with women from that same home. And that group has continued, and they go in once a month, and there's always snacks and games.
Of course, we're Baptist. There's always food.
Exactly. You've got to do that. But there's also a testimony or a devotional, that there is that teaching aspect of it. And that has been continuing on in that same home.
So it's interesting because if I remember correctly, that like relationship between some people who were connected to Brookside and that home was it not through just like one individual, and then kind of it has spread, and now like literally years later we're still kind of having a presence in this
still there, have a
residential
presence
home.
there.
That's amazing.
And what I found was so interesting was when COVID came, of course, everything was closed down and they weren't able to continue on with their monthly meetings.
Oh, yeah.
So what this life group did was they decided that on a biweekly basis, they were going to deliver muffins to the staff so that they could keep in touch with the staff and let them know that they were supporting and praying for the staff that was there. And it's just absolutely wonderful to see that continuity that's gone on. And that type of service is great. It just allows people to get in and to do things. Mm-hmm. And like I was just looking at some of the different groups, the different services that have been done with the different groups. There's one group that delivers a home cooked meal to an individual and does that every week.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just, the individual needs some help, some illness, and so, but also, there's been another group that has been assisting a refugee family to get settled into the area. Another group was prepared foods for Matthew House, so refugee house. Another group helped with the food bank garden, and another group conducted an online auction in support of a women's group. Yeah, and I know another group back several years ago after the flooding went and helped take some of the sandbags away after the flood was over. That's right. So it's all sorts of whatever you can do for the community, but as part of your life group. Mm-hmm. It builds such a bond if you're there and working together, not to mention the fun you have. It's
absolutely. And even that rhythm helps, like it. So the service and study can kind of help to make the social better because you know each other at that level. And then because you're studying together and you're hanging out together, when you go to serve, there's some trust there. So you can kind of serve even better together. And it's really like they're always working together. And what I like to see, is amazing, like, again, having these partnerships with some organizations in the community, the consistency over years and years and years, it's been really amazing to see. And yeah, like there's isn't the young adults, I think, are getting like involved with a youth homeless shelter downtown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
so
exactly.
it's just like ways to look at needs in our community and try to meet them through this vehicle of life groups.
Yeah. And the neat part of it is, as we go out into the community and help the community, we study, we get together on a social basis, the whole thing is helping Brookside in their mission to develop fully engaged followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, for us to grow and to be more prepared to do the work that Jesus would have us to do. Mm-hmm. I'm fully sold on life groups.
Yeah.
And, in fact, we have available, it's a 3-week session for somebody that's interested in exploring life groups.
That's right.
And we've got a fellow who is chomping at the bit to just lead that 3 weeks and just to give people a feel of what a life group may be like. And then they may go into an existing life group or see what
get one started up. Yeah. I think that it can be, especially for someone who's brand new to. So it would be really hard if you're brand new to Christianity, or if you're just very skeptical, and if you're new to a church. It would be still quite hard if you were maybe a cultural Christian or had some Christian background, but you came to a church. It could be still sort of intimidating. And even if you were like a very active member of a church and you move into a neighborhood, you come to a new church, getting involved in it's always going to be a little intimidating to get into a life group, because the term that comes to mind is that it's a holy disruption of your life. I don't know if that's ever been coined before. But it does. So it's your Tuesday evening, and maybe if you're doing a service or whatever, it's a Saturday. But it is important, and it's so much more outside of what you're just doing. It's for this community. It's for service, and growing relationships. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah,
So
it really is, and it is something that you have to give it some priority in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
And we ask that because in developing those relationships, you're getting close to people. You're getting to know them, and you can't do it if it's just a casual basis. So
give it some structure.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
So in your time as leader of the life groups and just in general, you're part of many life groups over the time. Do you have any kind of peak highlight moments that just kind of warm your heart when you think of them? Things that were just kind of amazing to experience along the way that you could share with us?
Yeah. One that comes to mind, a life group member, the life group member's daughter was out of town, single mom, and and she was having a rough time, and we the life group was kind of kept abreast of what was happening every week or so. We get an update from the member, and anyway, we would often pray for the daughter. And then COVID happened, and all of a sudden, what was rough became rougher, and the daughter lost her job, and there was problems with the kids, and it was a hugely rough patch in her life, and being out of town made it even worse because she was away from her parents, and so anyway, the life group decided that they wanted to do more than just pray for this daughter. And so they took up a collection. So all of a sudden, not only does this daughter who's in another town know that her parents' friends are praying for her, now they're doing something tangible. And this gift of cash just appeared.
Yeah.
And I know even to this day, both the daughter and the parents are still blown away by just what happened there. It just happened that, we need to do something more than pray. And this was just a wonderful example of a life group working together and showing God's love. So that's one that warms my heart.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's just, I love to see, because again, it's sort of about that structure. Like you could be sitting alone and thinking, oh, I really want to help people or whatever. But this is like a way to mobilize the church to be like who God has called us to be, people who are generous and thoughtful and supportive, and people who are, but you can do so much more. I mean, I was talking to the youth this past Friday. The illustration I said, I brought a camera monopod, which is a tripod with one monopod. Yeah. And I said to the one youth, here, put this and put it on the ground and then just let go and see what happens. And of course it falls over. Yeah. And then I said, okay, take this tripod, and it was open, and he just put it, and it of course stands up. And the Bible even teaches us, when there are a few of us, that cord is not easily broken, and so much more is possible to be done for the kingdom when you're working as a team and as a family. And so that's a great example, because you could give somebody $20 or something, but if you can all kind of rally around together, and it becomes a substantial gift that really blesses someone, and they're thinking about it years later, that's really amazing. Yeah. So that's amazing.
So that was the first example that popped into my mind anyway.
Yeah. So, what about kind of if we take a big step back and we think about life groups or small group ministry in the life of the church, kind of more in general terms, why is it so important in the life of the church?
that mission to develop fully engaged followers of Jesus. I really feel that Life Group allows that to happen. And just imagine if you have a church full of people who are fully engaged, who want to do the work that Jesus, Jesus told us to go out and to preach the gospel, to take care of the widows and the orphans. And imagine if you have a church that's full of people wanting to do that, compared to a church that the people come on Sunday morning and they sit for an hour and they hear the message and they sing the songs and they go back home. But if you have that group that's fully engaged, wanting to do the work that Jesus told us to do, that church is going to be far more effective in doing that work that Jesus wants us to do. Mm-hmm. So I think life groups are they're a huge part of the church as we grow, as we reach out into our community. And it's a wonderful way to do it because it teaches us how.
Yeah. Teaches how and keeps us, there's some accountability built in personally and just in your kind of Christian rhythms through life, someone checking in on you. And in a life group setting, it might be somewhat casual, but over the weeks and weeks, it becomes less casual and it becomes more of that accountability piece is very important for all of us.
Yeah, it really is. And the other thing is the flexibility. When I first started, I said usually. And different life groups require different things. And the way they're set up, they're flexible enough that they can be adapted to the needs of the individual group, and it is so effective in being able to be that flexible, to be able to move around and do what needs to be done.
Yeah, because some people would think I wonder if some people would go, well, I don't have this. You probably hear this all the time. I don't have the time, or I don't have I can't come every week or I guess I actually have that question. Like, what are some of the main kind of hesitancies or reasons why people are maybe afraid? Like, this is the words I would use. People are afraid to get in a life group. Like, I don't know if that's true or if that's even accurate, but have you heard, what are some of the reasons there?
Well, there is some hesitancy, and one is that commitment.
Yeah.
One couple in a life group that I'm involved in, they end up going to Florida again before COVID.
Yeah.
They would go to Florida for a couple of months. And because they were part of the life group, and that was before we had the availability of Zoom on the life group, but every week we send out information on the life group, the questions and that sort of thing. And so even though they were in Florida for those 2 or 3 months, every week they would get the email, kind of a quick update on what's happening within the group. And it kept them connected to the church. So even if there are some bumps that you've got to work through, you can work through them.
Yeah, flexibility is definitely key here.
Flexibility is huge.
Yeah,
and but to make sure that people realize how important it is for them to be flexible as well, and try and make the time to be at the weekly meetings, so that they can share their gifts.
Yeah, exactly.
At meetings as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good, Rob. You're doing such a good job. It's so good to talk through some of the behind the scenes, and the heart behind it is so important, because I think sometimes, you come to a new church or to Brookside, and it's just the thing you're kind of hearing is get in a life group, but there really is a heart for helping people grow in their personal faith, and this is something that we're actually called to and we care a lot about. So thank you so much for kind of sharing some of that heart behind it all.
If I can just add one thing, Lucas.
Yes.
with our life groups, we have, with COVID, we now have a lot of the life groups are meeting on Zoom.
That's right.
And I was listening to your podcast from last week where you talked about digital relationships, and being in a life group that was forced to go on Zoom has allowed me personally and a lot of other people to work through that hesitancy of a digital relationship. And so being part of a life group during this time allowed a whole lot of us people to retain those contacts, not be so isolated, because we were part of a life group, because we did meet on Zoom, and because we were willing to have those digital relationships. And so it's been huge.
Yeah. And still have, that's amazing. That's good to hear. And to still have, because the Holy Spirit is not limited in any way, like at all, let alone whether you're in person or on a device. So to give that spiritual discipline of meeting together, to do that however you possibly can. And even if you use online, like you're just opening your heart to say, Lord, here's my life, and I want to engage with you and the gospel. And he's totally able to do a work in and through the life of the church when you have to meet on a Zoom call.
So whether you're online or face to face,
the
Holy Spirit is there and he's working.
Yeah, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Rob, so much. That was such a great conversation, and I hope that people contact us about getting in a life group. Really,
absolutely. Thank you, Lucas. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Rob, for hanging out with me, having this conversation about Brookside Life Groups. Man, your heart is just on fire, and I'm so excited for the future of life groups, and even just for the potential and even what's actually happening with life groups. Man, we are reaching our community with the love of Jesus, and that is so cool. And these partnerships we've developed, like, it's just so amazing that we've been able to do so much, even as just a smaller little church here in North Canada. So thank you, Rob, for that conversation. And to you guys who are listening, I really hope that you had a great time listening to this. There were probably some things you want to go back and listen to again. So just that's the cool thing about podcasts is you can pause it, you can go back, you can watch in 2 times speed if it was boring, but just I want you to really enjoy listening to these. Make sure you subscribe or follow wherever you do listen to this, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe there. All of our sermon series and everything else that Brookside is videotaping these days is all online, and so we'd love to just get to know you a little bit more. Make sure that we're doing this all together, so you can head to mybrookside.church for all the news, latest and greatest from Brookside, and I just can't wait to keep these conversations going, and so I will see you in the next conversation.